animosity towards you, and all you leftist scumbags who abused your platforms as a political tool to bully children. If you spent the last 2 days inciting hate against and trying to devastate the lives of a group of teenagers for the crime of wearing MAGA hats and smiling, and still think you have the moral high ground, you're beyond redemption. And let's be honest, the witch hunt against this poor kid was driven almost exclusively by the fact that he represents everything leftists despise. White, straight, male, pro-life, Catholic, pro-Trump. Dude was like the final boss in some weird Anita Sarkeesian social justice video game. But despite the witch hunt, kids, it's okay to be white, it's okay to be male, it's okay to be straight, it's okay to support Trump. And in the face of vicious intolerance, it's okay to smirk.
Border security, we have to have it. Should have happened 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And it's going to happen now. Going to happen now. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Enjoy your food.
There's the juxtaposed of golden candlestick holders with candles and then all this fast food. Trump is ridiculous. He's the ultimate Joker card. But meanwhile, he says we've got burgers stacked a mile high. They spin it that he's lying when it's a figure of speech.
And I didn't see anybody complaining when Barack Obama was spending $65,000 on hot dog dinners. Nobody cared to mention that in the mainstream press or ridicule him. And Obama always made a big deal of going out for fast food, or the press did at least when he did.
Oh, it's well known. Trump likes tacos, and Obama likes wieners.
Listening to The David Knight Show. Alex Jones Show. Live from the Infowars.com studios, you're listening to The Alex Jones Show. And now, your host, Paul Joseph Watson.
Well, 2019 has already seen 3 giant media hoaxes, at least 3 giant media hoaxes. Of course, a few weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago, we had the conservatives triggered over Ocasio-Cortez dancing because everybody was enraged and furious about that, right? No, they weren't. That was a completely false set-up media narrative. Of course, on the weekend, on Friday night, we also had the Trump ordered Cohen to lie about Trump Tower Moscow BuzzFeed fake news story. Again, turned out to be completely false. And then, of course, just a day later, or less than 48 hours later, we had the Covington High School MAGA kids. And another element of that story is collapsing right now. The claim that the Native American activist Nathan Phillips served in Vietnam. He didn't. Now, let's go back to his CNN interview. I've got a quote from this here I'm going to read right now. This was from his original CNN interview. He said, "I'm a Vietnam veteran." He's not a Vietnam veteran. The Washington Post has had to issue yet another retraction after falsely claiming that the far-left Native American activist, and he is a paid activist, Nathan Phillips, served in the Vietnam War. He didn't. But this lie was previously used to help raise money for a documentary about his life. Not only was it used for that, it was used to give him credibility over the MAGA kids, to give him the impetus, to give him the gravitas that they used to force through his lie that he was confronted by them, that he was mobbed by them, which we've established now was a complete hoax. So now it turns out that not only is he a professional political activist, he was never in the Vietnam War, and the Washington Post has had to admit that. They said, correction. Earlier versions of this story incorrectly said that Native American activist Nathan Phillips fought in the Vietnam War. Phillips served in the U.S. Marines from 72 to 76, but was never deployed to Vietnam. So yet another aspect of this story cooked up by the media, this fake news narrative, has completely collapsed. He was never in Vietnam. Absolutely incredible. Then we have this video, which is the 8-second video, which you can roll right now. I'll talk over it, which has gone viral on Twitter yet again. Will they ever learn about taking things out of context and exploding and going insane over video clips that have no context, that don't prove anything? This is an 8-second video clip where some MAGA kids at the scene of the same confrontation that we've been talking about for the past 3 days shouted MAGA at this woman walking past them.
I'm so tired already.
Oh my God, the horror. They shouted MAGA. You've literally got the left embracing and encouraging Antifa, beating people up with flagpoles, spitting on disabled people. We've seen the mass violence across the country over the past 2 years. We've got the left continuously encouraging punching people in the face if they have a different political opinion. Oh, but some kids yelled the word MAGA and they're having an absolute meltdown. This video's got 8.43 million views in less than 24 hours. The Covington Catholic boys harassed my friends and I before the incident with Nathan Phillips even happened. I'm tired of reading things saying they were provoked by anyone else other than their own egos and ignorance. 203,000 likes. The absolute horror. Again, it's an 8-second clip. She's already walked past them, so you don't know if she initiated the confrontation because there's no video of it. Again, they're taking it out of context. But 78,000 retweets, 8.43 million views. Absolutely incredible. And again, this is the same left that endorses punching people in the face if they have a different opinion. But now they're having a collective panic attack because some kids shouted MAGA from a distance. Over 8 million views, again, having not learned their lessons. Absolutely incredible situation. But some people do seem to be learning a lesson, and maybe this is a teachable moment. We have this article out of Breitbart. Joy Behar of The View. Covington students attacked because we're desperate to get Trump out of office. And on The View, I think it was earlier today, she admitted, Whoopi Goldberg asked her, they were talking about why everyone rushed to judge these MAGA kids, why there was a snap judgment. Whoopi Goldberg asked Joy Behar, why do we keep making the same mistake? As in rushing to conclusions, demonizing people, witch hunting people. And she admitted, quote, because we're desperate to get Trump out of office. That's why. So we've finally got a scintilla of leftist self-awareness. Trump derangement syndrome, they're finally acknowledging that they've got it. They say the first step to, combating alcoholism is to accept it, is to embrace it. Now they're finally embracing Trump derangement syndrome and acknowledging that that's why they react in such an incendiary way to every drummed up fake controversy. Absolutely incredible. So we've had 3 major media hoaxes in 2019, and this latest one continues to collapse. And many people have pointed out, as I did in an article, oh, by the way, that 8-second video, I forgot to tell you the main part of this, which came out immediately after. The woman who posted this video, which has got over 8 million views, over 200,000 likes, over 78,000 retweets, again, pushing the narrative that they're bigoted, that they're racist, that they're harassing her. Well, people dug through her old tweets, and let's just say I can't even say them on air. A lot of N-words, quite a few N-words in her old tweets. She locked down a Twitter account because, again, she's N-word this, N-word that. It's all over the place. The article up on Gateway Pundit also points out she doesn't like black or Asian babies. She's making some very incendiary, offensive comments over those. And again, a lot of N-words. She's talking about how she feels about Mexicans. She said, in 2 weeks, I'm 21, and in 2 weeks, I'm on vacation from Mexicans. Again, I don't even know if I can read this, but again, basically just casual racism. Romney is such a effing F word. I can't even hashtag sorry. It's just all over the place. She deleted the tweets, locked down her Twitter account. Oh no, but those kids are terrible because they shouted the word MAGA after she'd already walked 10 paces past them. That's abusive harassment. Meanwhile, we've literally got people wishing these students to be burned alive, locked in their school and burned alive. What happened to his account? We featured that story yesterday. This was a musician, on top of people like Kathy Griffin. This guy had 32,000 followers. He was called @HouseShoes on Twitter. I think that was his handle. Literally calling for these kids to be gunned down, to be set on fire, for their school to be blown up. This guy right here, Uncle Shoes, quote, "If you're a true fan of Shoes, I want you to fire on any of these red hat B-word when you see them on sight." He later walked that back pathetically and said, "Oh, where I'm from, fire on means to punch somebody. Like that makes it okay anyway." But no, obviously it doesn't. You were literally calling for these kids to be gunned down. That guy is still on Twitter. Laura Loomer gets banned for criticizing female genital mutilation. This guy calls for children to be gunned down in cold blood, for schools to be blown up. His Twitter account is still perfectly active. Nobody's been punished for this. Nobody's been suspended. Nobody's been banned. But the guy who smirked, the child who smirked, continues to be vilified. We'll be back.
Imagine...
You found it, the tip of the spear. It is the Alex Jones Show. And now, your host, Paul Joseph Watson.
Well, live, it is the fourth hour of the Alex Jones Show. And before I get back into some more news, and we are going to talk about a few other subjects than the Covington High School debacle, even though it continues to rumble on day after day with, again, different aspects of the same fake news narrative collapsing again and again. First, I want to tell you about our exciting new product, and I can't wait to get my hands on some of this personally. It is Turbo Force from InfoWars Life, the healthy energy drink alternative, and we're launching a special mammoth 33% discount right now at InfoWarsStore.com. Everyone knows most energy drinks are bad for you and make you crash hard. Turbo Force is the ultimate energy drink alternative that's actually good for you. It contains 200 milligrams of naturally occurring caffeine, key vitamins, minerals, and patented ingredients that are designed to boost your natural systems and deliver energy straight into the body. Most other energy drinks have 400 milligrams or more of caffeine, but they're loaded with toxic ingredients and sugar that burns dirty and quick. I've been looking for an alternative to the energy drink that I consume, after exercise or just before exercise. And here it is. I can't wait to get my hands on it. Turbo Force is the real deal. And it's available right now for 33% off. It supports your metabolism, increases focus and alertness, and of course gives you that boost of energy without the caffeine, sugar crash that most other energy drinks unfortunately do. It is Turbo Force. It's available right now at InfoWarsStore.com at a massive 33% discount. Stock up on Turbo Force today. Please support this network. We need your support now more than ever. Turbo Force available at InfoWarsStore.com. Now, let's get more into the Covington scandal, because again, it continues to rumble on. There's actually a really good article at The Week, which is not a right-wing publication by any stretch of the imagination, by Damon Linker, titled "How Twitter Could Be the Death of Liberal Democracy." And he draws parallels, as I did in my video released yesterday, to George Orwell's 1984. He writes, quote, "In 1984, George Orwell famously described a totalitarian political order in which people were kept as docile subjects in part by a daily ritual called the 2 minutes of hate." You probably remember the scene from the movie, which was in my YouTube video yesterday, in which the population directs all of its pent-up fury at Goldstein, a possibly fictional enemy of the state. Now, in relation to this, he comes out with this quote, which I thought was very prescient. He says, "Extreme partisan polarization is combining with the technology of social media, and especially Twitter, to provoke a form of recurrent political madness among members of the country's cultural and intellectual elite." What else could explain the frothing, demented outbursts that we've seen over the past 3 days and continue to see, even though this story has been completely debunked? There you see the scene out of the, I think it's the John Hurt version of 1984, the 2 minutes of hate, which is basically what Twitter has become on a daily basis. And on the subject of Orwell's 1984, we got this headline up at Infowars.com. MAGA kid was persecuted for committing face crime. It's actually in Orwell's dystopian classic, Part 1, Chapter 5, quote, "The smallest thing could give you away, a nervous tic, an unconscious look of anxiety, a habit of muttering to yourself, anything that carried with it the suggestion of abnormality, of having something to hide. In any case, to wear an improper expression on your face, to look incredulous when a victory was announced, for example, was itself a punishable offence." There was even a word for it in Newspeak. Face crime. The smirk heard around the world. That is an example of face crime, because even after the whole narrative collapsed, the claims that the Covington high school students had surrounded the Native American activist, had mobbed him, had intimidated him, had harassed him, even after all that collapsed, you still had leftists across Twitter, across social media, expressing, once again, their demented Trump derangement syndrome, being so offended at the mere sight of this young man's facial expression. In fact, there was a tweet which kind of sums it up here from another verified liberal on Twitter called Jeffrey Grubb. He said, "Giving a shit eating grin to a Native American's face isn't legally violence, but he is smiling about the violence. He is saying, my people hurt you, and you can't touch me even while I gloat about it. It is fascism, and you should punch fascists." So not only is that guy completely demented and off his rocker, he's also apparently a mind reader, because he knows that that is what the young man was thinking when he gave that smirk. Do you really think he was stood there thinking that he's happy about the violence meted out, decades and decades before his parents probably even born, to Native Americans? No. But again, just an example of the absolute incendiary explosion of nonsense that came out in the aftermath and continues to come out, where a mere smirk is fascism, where a mere smile is an example of Orwellian face crime. And instead of Big Brother enforcing this against dissidents, you have leftists across Twitter enforcing it. Absolutely incredible. From the article, in essence, that's precisely what Sandman was persecuted for with his infamous smirk, since he merely stood his ground and adopted an expression, at no point attempting to provoke or get in Nathan Phillips' face. And again, in the video that I put out yesterday, numerous examples where leftists on Twitter had absolute panic attacks, meltdowns, toys out of the pram over Sandman's expression alone, even after the entire rest of the narrative had collapsed. Absolutely incredible. We're now at the point where a red hat and a smile makes you a fascist, because, of course, in 2019, everyone's a fascist. They also tried to run another fake news narrative last night, and this is the Cernovich tweet, which is a video which I sent, if you want to play that in the background, where they got this screenshot from a video of some of these kids from this school apparently in blackface. Oh my God, they'd caught them, they'd got the boot polish out. Actually turns out that it was a theme. They've had businessmen, they've had nerds, they've had a beach theme, they've had a hunting theme, they've had a blue out theme, and they've had a blackout theme. There you see the blue out. So they had a blackout theme at, I think it was a basketball game, where they all wore black, and a few of these boys also, their entire bodies were basically black. So again, the media took this, the Twitterati took it and spun it and said that these kids were dressing up in blackface to scream racist abuse at black, I think it was basketball players in this instance. Within half an hour, that claim had been demolished, and yet still, thousands and thousands of retweets, thousands of likes on these tweets claiming that these teens had blacked up to racially abuse African Americans. Have they not learned anything? Taking everything out of context, making snap judgments, and then hounding their victims in this witch hunt mob outrage crescendo. They still haven't learned anything. This should have been a teachable moment, because the narrative has completely blown up in their faces, yet they still continue to do it. as I said in the previous segment, with this new video that came out this morning, where a group of the same kids at the same site of the confrontation literally just shouted MAGA from a distance at this woman who had already walked past them. Whatever context the video had was stripped out, but she'd already walked past them by the time we saw any of the video, so we don't know what interaction they had before that, whether she provoked them, but besides the fact, oh my God, they shouted MAGA, and apparently now MAGA, saying the word MAGA, wearing a red hat, or, God forbid, smiling in the presence of somebody who is not white, that's not just a racist microaggression, that's literally fascism. Literally fascism. This is the level of insanity, of hysteria we've now reached in America, thanks to the media ginning this up at every available opportunity. We'll be back on the other side of the segment. This is the Alex Jones Show Live, breaking news at Infowars.com. Don't go away.
Alex Jones Show. Broadcasting live from the UN stronghold, Austin, Texas. You're listening to the Alex Jones Show. And now, your host, Paul Joseph Watson.
We're back for the final segment of this fourth hour. Remember, War Room is coming up next. And before I get into a few final news stories here, again, I want to direct you to InfoWarsStore.com, where we have the brand new exciting product. It is the energy drink Turbo Force, available right now for 33% off. This is our discount launch special. Turbo Force is the ultimate energy drink alternative that's actually good for you. It doesn't have the rush of caffeine and sugar that a lot of similar energy drinks do. It's got the right balance to give you the right burst of energy to kick you into high gear so you can get through your workout, and to improve your focus and your alertness on top of that. Again, can't wait to get my hands personally on a supply of Turbo Force, the brand new energy drink, available at 33% off right now at InfoWarsStore.com. Please go there and check out Turbo Force today. Now, I'm going to get into a few final news stories. Of course, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has come out and said, the world's going to end in 12 years. Yes, she literally said that. I've got the quote right here. I think that the part of it is that generational, is that millennials and Gen Z and all these folks that come after us are looking up, and we're like, the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. Do you want to bet? Do you want to bet? Okay, I've been looking at this for the past, 15 plus years. I've been reading about climate change alarmism. And this stretches back way before that. This stretches back decades to the likes of Paul Ehrlich and all these global warming eugenicists. He said in 1968, okay, that the British Isles, that Great Britain, would be underwater by the 1980s. Wrong. Yet he's still cited as an expert in man-made climate change. The guy who said Britain would be underwater by the 1980s. How many times do they have to get it wrong again and again and again until we say, well, you can't be trusted anymore? Acid rain, remember that? In fact, I think it was Jack Posobiec posting about this today, other people too. Scaremongering magazine articles from the late 80s about how acid rain was going to cause mass tree die-offs. It didn't. Again, another completely inaccurate, baseless, alarmist prediction about climate change that did not come to pass. Al Gore saying that the Arctic would be ice-free, that the ice would all melt by 2014. Did not happen. Did not happen. You remember the destructive global cooling scare of the 1970s. Newsweek magazine and others reporting that not global warming, but global cooling would cause a massive environmental catastrophe. Did not happen. Again, because the climate is mainly driven by sun activity. So again, that's when we had a period of warming immediately after the global cooling scare, another alarmist prediction that proved to be completely false. So, I mean, AOC's prediction that the world's going to end in 12 years is not even that much more alarmist than what they've already said for decades and been proven completely inaccurate on. Gateway Pundit reports, flashback, Like Ocasio-Cortez, Al Gore warned of global warming disaster in 12 years. 12 years ago this week. 12 years ago, junk scientist Al Gore released his award-winning movie, An Inconvenient Truth. Remember, in which they said polar bears couldn't swim. He warned the audience back then, 12 years ago, global warming is about to toast our ecology and our way of life. In January 2006, Gore posited, within the next 10 years, the world will reach a point of no return. Okay, that's passed. And a true planetary emergency due to global warming, because, of course, he was invested in all the carbon tax stock options. Of course, this turned out to be nothing more than PR BS to push his movie. And they linked to 8 dire predictions from that movie, which were completely wrong. 10 years ago, Gore predicted the North Polar ice cap would be completely ice-free in 5 years. Gore made the prediction to a German audience in 2008. Did not happen. How many times do they have to be wrong before we stop listening to these idiots? Speaking of idiots, speaking of elitist idiots, the same ones who fly to Davos in private jets while lecturing the rest of us about, not having baths. Walls armed guards protect Davos elite. This is InfoWars Europe. Global elite meeting in Davos, Switzerland are relying on walls and armed guards to protect them. I thought walls were racist. I thought walls were a nationalistic, populist, bigoted thing. Obviously not if you're a member of the global elite and you want to be protected from all the plebs, who, by the way, are furious about them returning to Davos in their limos as they lecture the rest of us again about man-made climate change. Meanwhile, France builds Trump-style wall to stop illegals getting to Britain, yes. The same France under the jurisdiction of globalist Emmanuel Macron, who lectures the United Kingdom about Brexit being racist, who lectures Donald Trump about walls being racist. Well, now, French authorities have built a 10-foot wall at a total station in Calais used by migrants who attempt to storm lorries and break into Britain. It's almost like walls work. It's almost like they actually work. Macron and Merkel booed before signing European Army Treaty, and the video is in the article on Infowars.com. Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron were booed during the signing of a treaty that takes another giant leap towards establishing a European army. Yet another thing that the globalists, that the technocrats lied to us about, it's just a free trade zone, it's never going to be anything more than that, not going to be a federal superstate, not going to be European army. Now they're signing treaties which cause a vast lurch towards a European army. Absolutely incredible. The yellow vest there in Germany, not too happy about it. They were booed, heckled and jeered during this opening ceremony as they went in to sign the treaty. Of course, Macron's got a 23% approval rating. There have been violent riots and protests on the streets of France for the past 10 weeks, and yet he still continues in the course of globalism, as does Angela Merkel, who, of course, last year, as we highlight in this article, attended an event called Parliamentarianism in the Tension of Globalization and National Sovereignty, where she said, quote, nation-states should be willing to give up their sovereignty, and this should be done via an orderly process. And that's precisely what she's doing today in Germany by signing a treaty with Macron to establish a global European army as they're booed by their own citizens. Meanwhile, staying in France, French Mayor blisters Macron, mass immigration must be ended. French President Emmanuel Macron was warned about the wrath he's incurring by showering migrants with preferential treatment and resources during a town hall attended by some 600 mayors from around the country. This was Brigitte Barget, the mayor of Montauban, who spoke on behalf of forgotten French citizens who have now been protesting in the streets for more than 10 weeks and are often smeared as far-right or violent extremists. He said, quote, mass immigration must be ended. He cited citizens' concerns in their Cahier de Doléances, a log of grievances being compiled as part of a national grand debate. He said the people who are at the roundabouts feel deprecated, forgotten by the Republic. They express themselves by singing the Marseillaise when they're marching. They aren't vandals, rioters. I hosted them in my town hall. Those are poor people. So again, you do have some people taking over these riots in France who are doing it for their own reasons and not the right reasons, spoiling the image of the yellow vest. But again, as this mayor pointed out, the vast majority of them have very legitimate grievances and have not engaged in direct violence. Meanwhile, in Belgium, 6 migrants kidnapped and held Belgian woman as slave for months. Italian authorities, actually in Italy, but it's a Belgian victim, are investigating claims of a 32-year-old Belgian woman who says she was kidnapped by 6 migrants and forced into sexual slavery for 2 months. Yet another story about that. It never ends. Transgender epidemic in the UK. One child changes gender every day. A non-issue and normal, says PM Theresa May. So listen to these stats. Most of the kids who are going transgender are either 14 or 15. The number of children aged between 3 and 18 being referred to gender identity clinics went from 314 in 2011, just 8 years ago, to 2016 in 2016. And now there's been an even greater increase on top of that. So could it possibly be this consistent media narrative that transgenderism is completely normal for children and that it should be pushed on children? Is that having an effect in making these children fall into this transgender myopia, whereas otherwise they wouldn't be interested in it whatsoever? And of course, it's parents trying to be all trendy, trying to be really progressive, pushing their own warped mentality onto children, as we see in this case right here, the amazing Desmond or whatever he's called. Absolutely incredible. That was a good point pointed out by somebody on Twitter. The national media encourages this kind of thing, you know, drag queens and transgender kids. This is supposedly healthy for society, but a kid, a high school kid, standing up, smirking, doing absolutely nothing wrong, that is abhorrent behaviour. This is the complete disconnect we currently see in Western society, and it's only getting worse. That's going to wrap it up for the 4th hour of the Alex Jones Show. Coming up next, War Room with Owen Schroyer. Be sure to stay tuned for that. Breaking news, Infowars.com. We'll be back.
I gotta tell you, I'm in a bit of a weird mood to start the show today because, quite frankly, the world has just gone insane. And it's like, I'm just being inundated with people trying to get me to cover their stories and all this stuff, and it's great. And then there's like other stuff that goes on that I will never talk about on air. It's like infighting, high school level stuff that I have to deal with too. But I don't know. We just had some weird video ideas that I was talking with Alex about before I came on, and then I was joking around with the crew about, but I don't know. Maybe that's what I do. Because these stunt videos are really the ones that end up going viral more than anything else. Like, there's this prank group called Nelk that went and did this prank video, and someone had them arrested. This Canadian was almost going to have to spend time in jail here over some prank video where it's clearly a prank, but the lawyer's talking to the judge, and they're both making fun of the snowflake generation. And it's just like, wow, now I kind of have some faith in humanity again. And then you go on Twitter, and you just see the absolute madness. It's not even a left-right thing, quite honestly. It's just total insanity, where you have this thing going on in a response to, first Cardi B does a video about the government shutdown. Of course, totally just ignorant. And then Tommy Loren and Stephanie Hamill and some other people respond, and then she responds, and then it becomes like this whole thing on Twitter. And when you inject yourself into these threads and you inject yourself into these little Twitter debates that go on, you honestly find the dumbest, lowest IQ people that you could ever imagine. And there's multiple levels to this, where like there's a hip hop artist, Wale, who I'm talking to, and he says, you know, you shouldn't be telling women what to do. And I say, show me one instance where I've ever told a woman what to do. And he couldn't do it. And it's like, see, you're just assuming things about me. I never told a woman what to do. We're simply saying, look, Cardi B is not about women's empowerment when she shakes her ass in a music video. Now, if Cardi B went out and did a bunch of, history lectures or learned proper grammar, then you could say, wow, that's a good example of women's empowerment. But fine, shaking her ass in a music video to make millions of dollars, fine, that's an example of women's empowerment. The point is This is the crazy reverse logic that we've entered on multiple levels. But let's just apply it to the women's empowerment movement. You claim women are objectified, so you fight for female empowerment. Females then objectify women and then call it empowerment. I mean, this is the cycle of madness and insanity that humans are going down every day. And that's just one example of it, which is a minor example. That's just kind of fun. Here's one that is a serious threat to free speech that Ann Coulter highlights on Twitter that we're going to be talking about today. And you know what? I'm going to have a lot of time to take phone calls today, so we're going to have open phone lines today as well. But Ann Coulter says, journalists, of course, August 2018, which is when InfoWars really started to become the center of attention for bans, and Alex Jones became ground zero. They claimed that, and again, Sandy Hook happened in 2015 or something? And so they banned Alex 3 years after Sandy Hook for stuff that he was debating on air. And then what do you have? And that's one person who, even since and before August of 2018, made multiple public statements saying he believes Sandy Hook happened. And for any news that was misconstrued, he wants to correct the record. But then what happens in January 2019? Thousands of radical leftists on Twitter target children and their families for harassment, murder, and torture. And not one of those accounts has been banned, including multiple verified accounts. And it's all...
So now we know what happened. A bunch of high school kids in MAGA hats were being verbally abused by a black militant group.
This is a bunch of future school shooters.
They began chanting high school songs to drown out the abuse. Then this dude tries to cause a confrontation by wading into the group of kids and banging his drum. Nothing happened, no one got hurt, and that should have been the end of it. But how did the media report it?
A disturbing viral video shows a group of teens harassing and mocking him in the nation's capital. Here's the video sparking outrage on social media right now.
Racist, aggressive Trump supporters viciously abused and harassed Native American veteran! They taunted him! Because, and wait for it, this is pretty damn shocking. One of the kids, who was wearing a MAGA hat, he stood there and he smirked. Cue a leftist hate mob sharpening their digital pitchforks to engage in the most vile social justice witch hunt ever seen.
I'm certainly in favour of building a wall around Covington Catholic High School in Kentucky, and let's electrify it to keep those disgusting punks from getting loose and creating more violence in society.
Putting Catholic kids in concentration camps to own the Nazis. So progressive.
White people really are terrorists. Whiteness is terrorism.
Hello, FBI. I would like to report a terrorist. Hey, how dare you criticize those Parkland kids? Kids in red Trump hats, though.
MAGA kids go screaming, hat first, into the wood chipper.
That's just fine. I want you to fire on any of these red hat bitches when you see them on sight. Lock the kids in the school and burn that bitch to the ground. Burn the fucking school down. Gets called out
Where I'm from, fire on means punch a motherfucker in the face.
Really? And I guess burn the fucking school down means to stage a peaceful protest and hand out flowers. Yeah, enjoy prison, loser. Apparently, according to Twitter, calling for kids to be shot in the head is not a problem.
From elementary school through college, I went to school with sheltered, upper-middle-class white boys who could devastate with a smirk. A facial gesture that weaponized their privilege. Infuriatingly, you can't fight that fucking smirk with a punch of words.
Imagine being that upset over a kid smiling. Haha, conservatives so easily triggered by a razor ad. A white kid smirking.
I honestly haven't stopped thinking about the MAGA kid all day, in part because I think so many of us have been on the receiving end of the face he was making. A smug, untouchable, entitled fuck you.
Show me on the doll where the smirk hurt you.
I've watched all of the videos. You can understand that the situation was more complex in the first video and still recognize why the sight of that face caused a visceral reaction in so many.
Yeah, because he's white and you're a self-loathing racist. Possible modifications? Assault smirk. Honest question, have you ever seen a more punchable face than this kid's? Yeah, yours.
If you know this little shit, punch him in the nuts and send me the video of it.
Promoting sexual assault of children to own the bigots. When a guy whose entire culture and population was destroyed by foreigners tells you walls don't work. Smiles in Caucasian. Forget the white supremacist OK sign. The ADL just found a new hate symbol. Smirking. MAGA. The American swastika. Salty by name, salty by nature. And you'll never guess which behaviour the media deemed inappropriate for society.
Fuller picture emerges of viral video between Native American man and Catholic students. The New York Times.
Fuller picture equals we believed lies, failed to perform basic journalistic due diligence, and ruined the lives of numerous children because Orange Man bad.
Orange Man bad.
Orange Man bad.
Orange Man.
Orange Man.
Fake news, 454,000 views. Truth, 4,500 views.
This is CNN.
And where was the media when this old man was legitimately being harassed? Where was your outrage then?
I'm calling for a total and complete shutdown of teenagers wearing MAGA hats until we can figure out what is going on. They seem to be poisoning young minds.
Yeah, I'm calling for the total and complete shutdown of your Twitter account until you can figure out what a lying fucking moron you are. Guilty of racist taunt. Innocent of all charges. So the media ran a completely fake news story, which resulted in children being threatened with murder, doxxed, abused, and potentially having their lives ruined. And you wonder why there's so much animosity towards you. And all you leftist scumbags who abused your platforms as a political tool to bully children. If you spent the last 2 days inciting hate against and tried to devastate the lives of a group of teenagers for the crime of wearing MAGA hats and smiling, and still think you have the moral high ground, you're beyond redemption. And let's be honest, the witch hunt against this poor kid was driven almost exclusively by the fact that he represents everything leftists despise. White, straight, male, pro-life, Catholic, pro-Trump. Dude was like the final boss in some weird Anita Sarkeesian social justice video game. But despite the witch hunt, kids, it's okay to be white, it's okay to be male, it's okay to be straight, it's okay to support Trump. And in the face of vicious intolerance, it's okay to smirk. Tolerance, it's okay to smirk. Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that. And click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video.
Modern world? Who? Europeans. Built the modern world. We invented science and industry. We invented science and industry, and you want to tell us to stop because, oh my God, we're so bad. We built the modern world. We built the modern world. Europeans. Built the modern world. We invented science and industry. We invented science and industry, and you want to tell us to stop because, oh my God, we're so bad. We invented the modern world. I feel you. You're so dumb. We invented the modern world. You fucking degenerate. We saved billions of people from starvation. We built modern civilization. White people are the best thing that ever happened to the world. We are so amazing. love myself, and I love white people.
Say that one more time.
Fuck yeah, white people.
Say it right here.
Fuck yeah, white men. We're white men. We did everything. Look, I don't hate other people. I just love white people. I just love white men. God. I just love white men. Oh, God.
All right, here we go. Thanks, bro, for being a voice in our crazy times. Anytime. It's an exciting time. We're going to win. Big Bear, can I make some highlight videos of your stuff and upload them and spread the word? The same way they do for Joe Rogan videos. Huge fan, love your vids. Keep on fighting the good fight. Please do that. Do you know how many people we're not reaching because I go so long? Tons of people are like, Big Bear, I love your videos. Make them 15 minutes, not 3 hours. And I'm like, well, I try to, and then I start talking about, mind control. And then I start playing Pink Floyd. And then I start trying to make the fire brighter. And then before you know it, I'm 3 hours deep. And everyone's went to bed.
Modern world. Europeans built the modern world. We invented science and industry. We invented science and industry. And you want to tell us to stop because, oh my God, we're so bad. We built the modern world. We built the modern world. Europeans built the modern world. We invented science and industry. We invented science and industry, and you want to tell us to stop because, oh my God, we're so bad. We invented the modern world.
I feel you. You're so dumb.
We invented the modern world. You fucking degenerate. We saved billions of people from starvation. We built modern civilization. White people are the best thing that ever happened to the world. We are so amazing, and I love myself, and I love white people.
Say that one more time.
Fuck yeah, white people.
Say it right here.
Fuck yeah, white men. We're white men. We did everything. Look, I don't hate other people. I just love white men. God. I just love white men. Oh, God.